let's go with our audience now. We've got a question over here, Miss Peggy.
Oh. This is a good point to ask this question.
Put it to your mouth.
Okay.
Woo, there she is.
Since you said that, I was going to ask this question anyway, and maybe Mr. Nippert, since you've already talked. We're hearing a lot anymore about ranked choice voting, and I was wondering if you could address that and your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a math problem, and it's giving people more than one chance. It's a horrible idea. If you want me to summarize it, I think it's a horrible idea. The reason is because people who run, let's say, I'll just use the word establishment. Somebody who runs in an establishment position has the advantage already from money, from stature, from endorsements. And if you have ranked voting, if they score within a certain amount, guess what? They get a second chance. I'll tell you, folks like me, and I'll even include Alan in this, we're not connected to the big money. We have to raise and earn our money. We have to go out there and pound the pavement and beg people, please, help us win races. The establishment, they don't have to do that. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican establishment, you don't have to do that. So guess what? Liberty candidates and people who really want to bring sound principles back to action started winning races all over the country. So what did they do? They just threw a variable at you and said, well, we're going to give our guy one more chance. If for some reason you don't get within this margin of error, then he gets the second shot at it. That's why. I think it's a horrible idea. I think best person wins, and that should be it.
Alan, what would you add?
I agree with you absolutely, because I've seen the problems. I had my television station report the problems. They thought I was a nut. But let me tell you, I've watched where the establishment individual got beat. 30 days later, they got enough money where that establishment person won. And he's right. Listen, I won an election. I won my special election. It's state representative. With the Republicans, there was 4 special elections out of the state. Republicans decided they weren't going to help me because my district was 69% Democrat. So I had $3,000 to run against $117,000. Guess who's the only person that went out of those 4? I made him pay for it too. Because that's a problem. We got people like Miss Southwood. I love Tisha. I love her to death. You know, I met her last year. We got some people up there liberty minded. It's also got a mind of their own. That's going to listen to their constituents. Okay? When I was up there at the 24 to 26, we probably had 24 to 26 that actually listened to their constituents and did what they were supposed to do. The will of the people, not the will of Alan Miracle or Steve Nipper or Michael Adams. Michael Adams thinks he's the king, just like Napoleon Andy. We're going to give him a water, is what we're going to do. And let me tell you the other thing we're going to do real quick.
Good.
You guys need to start looking for people to run for office that's going to be servants of the people. I've been there and done that. They got rid of me. They tried to get rid of me. This, we'll get to that later, I guess. But I'm going to tell you, the establishment don't like me because they sued me this last election. And guess who's the only person that beat Michael Adams in an election? And I did it without an attorney. I used past precedents, and I used my state constitution. They brought their attorneys in, and my judge agreed. Oh, the votes are not going to count, but the man can stay on the ballot.
That's right. Okay, gang. More questions. Where's our microphone? Gentlemen? This gentleman here? Absolutely.
I like to always look at the big picture first. And if this is a little encouraging for y'all, I moved here, almost 50 years ago. And I told my wife, she's from Kentucky, I said, this state is Democrat, lock, stock, and barrel. Just we can live with it. So we've come a long way from that. All right, that's a little encouragement. The second thing, my comment is, it sounds like we have, I don't know what percentage, you guys probably know, of rhinos in the Republican. Forget the Democrats, we know about them. So we're going to have to find out who these people are. Have anybody heard of Mitch? And we got to find out who these people are and get them out. But I know we're going to need election integrity. So here's my question, which I think y'all answered it. About 2 years ago, I wrote a letter to Daniel Cameron. And I said, you know, he's Attorney General. I said, anybody investigating the 2020 election? Is anybody investigating the election between Bevin and Bashir? And no response. So I think he wasn't doing his job, he went to me.
You wanna go, or you want me to? Let me go to you, I don't care.
Have a big
Because we're probably both on the same.
Have a coin to flip here, Blaine gave me a coin. There's a donkeys behind on part of that. That would be the
Well, I'd rather be a smart elephant than a dumb jackass, so, anyhow, folks, I don't understand that.
I'll address it real quick. As far as Daniel Cameron goes, I can't speak for him, but I had all the IP addresses of all the machines, of the voting machines that aren't supposed to touch the internet. I turned all the IP addresses over to the Attorney General's office. Not only that, I took one step further and I said, here are who all those IP addresses are registered to, and they're registered to the Commonwealth Office of Technology. So here is your list, have at it. And they took 2 or 3 days, and they got back to me and said, the reason we're not going to pursue this is because we need to know where you got that information from. And I said, I don't understand. Please explain. And he said, well, if you got this information from a source that you shouldn't have been getting this information from, we need to know that because you can't handle that illegally. I said, I did not get this illegally. I got it from Mike Lindell. He'll even testify. I'll even bring it down here and let him. If it's not your data, we can't pursue it. It has to be from the person who's got the data in the first place. So basically they were saying, if Mike Lindell wants to come down and push the issue, he can. You as a citizen of Kentucky. I don't understand why Daniel Cameron's office didn't do that. Okay? The other thing I will say is, there was another point that you had brought up about the Attorney General's office and Michael Adams. Governor Bevin, okay? Governor Bevin's race was really interesting because when it first happened, and if nobody knows what I'm talking about, it's out there on the internet. You can see it. It's a clear flip of votes from one to another. The way it's done is the Secretary of State first of all came out and said it never happened. What you saw didn't happen. It's a trick. It's this, and then they quickly changed their story to no, it was a television. It was the people at the television station who flipped the television's numbers. It wasn't the actual vote numbers. Well, the problem with that is it was the actual vote numbers because the television was called the television crawl was at the bottom. The television crawl reads the old numbers. The flipping of the actual votes, which comes in from a system called Edison, which is hooked up to the internet, broadcast those numbers. So, of course, Michael Adams had to then go back and walk that back and say, well, maybe something did happen, but what it was a correction. It was a correction. And when he said that, I said, I got you. Because who in their right mind, or who has the authority to go in there and flip votes? Who is that person? I got no answer. But think about the question. If it was a correction and Andy Bashir needed those 5,000 votes because it was misapplied, who has the authority to change that on national television? Hello? There's no answer. So you were just told to forget about it. We go into the next news cycle, you didn't hear about it. 2020, the farther we get away from 2020, the more they want to fit you with a tinfoil hat. 2022, what happened in 2022 here? Who had long lines and problems galore? Right. And why was that? Because you were not good sheeple. And you did not go early and vote early. So you were being trained, if you don't come early, you're going to have long lines. That's what was being told to you. Do not vote early, stand in line. Use the bill that Alan passed that says if you're in line, make them stay there till 11 o'clock at night. He wants to play games with him. Because let me tell you, he's a coward, and he'll back down.
Alan, real quick.
Well, he's part of the swamp that got him elected in the first place. Let me tell you this. I'm glad about the HESTAT bill. Because I want people to be in line. I don't care if it's 10 o'clock or the next day. I want you to vote. Unfortunately, I do believe that Evansburg, wherever area that was, that flipped, whatever county it was, I would have went ahead and done myself a recount. I went ahead and done it. But he didn't. Got a lot of problems. And this is the reason why I'm going to create what's called the Election Integrity Task Force. I've mentioned from day one, this task force is going to look into every single election thing or process or election problems. I don't care how small it is. I don't care how large it is. We're going to look into everything and we're going to get an answer. And if there's some corruption going on, instead of me working with, oh, Mr. Attorney General, will you please do this? I'm going to have a press conference like I've had beforehand, and I'm going to embarrass your rear end to get it done. And I'm going to name names. Because that's what I've done before. And it's worked for me. Of course, I ain't too well liked by some of the little guys, but I really don't care. Because I'm not serving them, I'm serving you. With that election integrity task force is going to consist of a lot of different people. There's people involved in election integrity. That thing ain't working, that's why I'm talking this way. But I'm also going to put 3 people that's actually involved in elections. I'm going to find someone from the county clerk's office that's involved in elections on the board. Have someone in the sheriff's department that's involved in the board. They don't know what they're doing. And the third thing is I'm going to ask that the legislature give me someone from the Elections and Constitutional Amendment Committee to put on the board. I know I served that committee. Because they know about elections and passing. And so we're all going to get together, and I'm going to have some really other good people too, because I'm going to make sure that I got someone good and right. And once we find these problems, you're going to get an answer. Because I can't remember the last time that there's been a lot of election problems, and I don't remember the last time any of us has gotten an answer. You all remember any of it? Do you remember any of it? I don't think we ever have. So we got to get on top of this, folks, because this election is important. Steve, you have said this is true. If you don't like either one of the 2 of us, we're going to be in trouble from now on. And if we don't get this thing straightened up, and also legislative-wise to straighten it up, so it can never be screwed up again, we're going to be in trouble. Kentucky needs to be the leader, not to follow. We're always last place in everything. We shouldn't be. Just like the Syrian system. I know I get a little upset over it.